At 9:03 p.m., Daniel opened his laptop. He sat at the same desk, drank from the same coffee mug, and looked at the same unfinished projects he'd been avoiding for months. He navigated to a folder sitting directly on his desktop, titled Future Me. This was a digital archive of his own intentions. 6 months ago, Daniel had recorded dozens of video messages and voice notes for himself, designed to hold his own feet to the fire. He intended these recordings to be a psychological trap. If he heard his own voice demanding progress, he assumed he would have no choice but to follow through. Daniel clicked play on a video from the spring. On the screen, a younger version of himself looked healthy, energized, and certain of his direction. The past Daniel asked, "Did you actually do what we talked about?" Daniel paused the video right there. He didn't need to hear the rest of the speech to know the reality. His habits had not moved. He still slept through his alarms, still scrolled past his deadlines, and still relied on the same excuses he'd been using for years. He sat in the silence of his room and realized that if he met himself as a stranger, he wouldn't trust a word he said. He had used every motivational tool available: honest reflection, recorded goals, and clear intentions, and his life remained stagnant. This suggests that his understanding of how he actually makes decisions was missing a critical piece. Daniel didn't double down or make a new vision board. Instead, he dragged the entire Future Me folder to the trash and emptied it. He realized he was stuck in the someday trap. As this diagram shows, when a task requires effort, our brain hits a barrier of discomfort. To avoid that pain, the brain loops the action forward to an imaginary point called tomorrow. The folder full of videos wasn't helping because it provided Daniel a way to negotiate. He could watch a video, feel the emotional rush of wanting to change, and then decide that the actual change would happen in the next hour or the next day. Phrases like, "I'll start later," are highly effective tools for the brain. They allow us to feel the relief of having a plan without requiring us to exert any physical energy in the present moment. By talking to his future self, Daniel was effectively outsourcing his discipline to a person who didn't exist. He was waiting for a version of himself that was naturally motivated, rather than dealing with the version of himself that was currently tired. To stop the negotiation, Daniel adopted a single operational rule, the 5-minute rule. The logic follows a binary path. When a task appears, you ask one question: does this take under 5 minutes? If the answer is yes, you follow the path that bypasses the mental web of excuses and leads directly to completion. This started with the smallest possible actions. He saw a stack of mail on his desk, and instead of walking past it, he spent 2 minutes sorting it. He replied to a single pending email in 3 minutes. He read exactly 2 pages of a book in 5 minutes. These were minor, almost trivial tasks, but by moving immediately, he removed the time gap required for his brain to start a negotiation. He wasn't giving himself enough time to think about whether he felt like doing it. For the first 3 weeks, Daniel's life looked exactly the same to the outside world. He hadn't hit any major milestones, and he wasn't suddenly more successful. However, his internal data was changing. He began to notice that when he told himself he would do a quick task, he actually did it. The micro-promises, cleaning a dish, sending a text, filing a document, were being kept. Every time he acted on the 5-minute rule, he was providing himself with physical evidence that his own word had weight. He was no longer a person who just intended to act. He was a person who was currently acting. This repetition began to shift his self-perception. After hundreds of these tiny completed actions, the old label of procrastinator stopped matching his daily behavior. He didn't find motivation, he built a track record. Months later, Daniel created a new folder on his computer. He titled it Future Me again. But unlike the first folder, this one remains empty. There are no videos of him making promises and no notes about what he hopes to become. He stopped sending messages to his future self because he realized the version of him that exists 6 months from now doesn't need instructions. That person only needs the results of the work done today. The future is not built on conversations or grand intentions. It is built on the proof of what you are doing right now. Stop talking to your future and start proving yourself to it.